Towards the end of your presentation, you gave us a challenge, and I think that's where our role should be, is rising to that challenge. I was taking copious notes, and because I felt like I was in a lecture, a very good one, and I've attended many of your speeches and presentations before, and I always take notes because you have a lot of good tidbits, which I'll tweet later. As Pak Khalid mentioned just now, I'm from Indonesia, the largest Muslim population in the world, I guess now. And you said something which I think is something that we have to note. Indonesia's never considered itself as a Muslim country. We're not the Islamic Republic of Indonesia. We're the Republic of Indonesia. We have a majority Muslim population, but we recognize, and I think it was towards the end of Pak Watik's presentation, he mentioned Pancasila. He mentioned this united in diversity. It's a motto that we have in Indonesia, but it is what makes, the largest Muslim population. As a majority, we don't take that majority lightly. I think we have a responsibility, and I think that has to be recognized wherever we are. If we are a majority, I mean, Kun Suri mentioned he's in Thailand, he's coming from a minority, and he's risen to the challenge. But I think the challenge is bigger when you are actually the majority, because how you can be fair and how you can be just as a majority is also something that we have to learn, and we have to. And I think that is the role. How we play our role as a majority plays a very big part in how we develop and flourish as a democracy. This morning in my discussions with our Japanese colleagues, I mentioned in Indonesia, we don't call Muslim Democrats with a small d. That's also significant in Indonesia, because to be Democrat with a capital D, it will be Partai Demokrat, and they lost the election, so we don't want to be Democrat with a capital D either. But again, we often, even in Indonesia, where we're considered to be one of the largest, not just largest Muslim population now, but also one of the world's largest democracies. So we don't take those adjectives lightly, and we don't take democracy as a given. Now in Indonesia, this year was a test for us, and I think in a way we almost failed that test. We were complacent. 16 years of reformasi and having a democracy, and we slightly became complacent. We thought that democracy, once you have it, it's done, and you can just sit back and relax. This year was a testament where you can't think that. We almost, again, in terms of the process, we went through it. But in terms of a lot of things, we almost slipped up and went back to the ways of the old ways, where democracy meant that power was in the hands of a small group of people, and we allowed the parliament to pass a law where it would revoke the power of the people to choose their own regional heads. That was a challenge that we didn't see coming, and because we were complacent. I don't blame, okay, at that time I did blame the president, I blamed everybody, and I realized that we had to blame ourselves, because democracy is also a responsibility. Like I said, it's something that we can't be complacent about. So kind of going back to Pak Surin's presentation, it's being able to recognize those challenges and rising up to it. And I like the fact that you mentioned being humble and being tolerant, and not being rigid. One of the things that highlighted our presidential elections this year was the use of Islam as a campaign, black campaign, smear campaign. And again, it's part of democracy, and it's how you rise to that challenge is how our current president, President Jokowi, he didn't fight back. He rose, but in a humble way. He chose to just carry on. He didn't fight back with another smear campaign, which I think is a model that we need to start learning in not just in Muslim Democrats with a small d, or I think it's in all democracies, and I think one of the things that we've learned in Indonesia and the role of Muslim Democrats is not just in the hands of the people who are running for political seats, or not the ones that are in their seats, but also the role of the community. And this is where I think in Indonesia it becomes very unique. Not unique, but I think it's a privilege, again, a responsibility of the civil society, of people. We're very fortunate that in 1998, when President Habibie was president, he freed the media. And then again, freedom of expression, freedom of press is something that now we enjoy. We don't always like what they report about us, and they can be completely wrong. But at the same time, there are always avenues and various media that we can use to start the debate, start the discourse. So you had TV stations who would report completely different things from other TV stations, but we were confident that the people of Indonesia were smart enough, and the voters were smart enough to know the difference. So, I mean, I'm coming from a think tank, from civil society organization, where we felt that, this is not a decline of democracy. This is us growing. This is the development of a democracy. And I think where the role is, I think there needs to be a definition of where the role is for individuals. As what are you? A lot of it is actually how you define yourselves. Are you a Democrat first? Are you a Muslim first? Are you an Indonesian first? Depending on the situation, I guess you can say whatever. But I think it's an all-encompassing role, and I like that you mentioned that being a good Muslim is basically being a good human being overall, and not just in one country and not just in one situation, but in everything. I'm going to stop there, and hopefully more wisdom can come from other people as well, as I'm just an observer.
Thank you, Ima.